This is my presentation of A Modest Proposal. So to give a little background on this piece of literature, A Modest Proposal is a 1729 satire written by Jonathan Swift, and he was a popular author during the 18th century Restoration time period. And this piece of literature is a 6-page proposal of what we could consider to be an absurd and kind of cruel ideas aimed to get a point across about the corruption of the current economic and social state between Ireland and England. During this time, the poverty level of the Irish was exceedingly high, and there was an overall lack of sympathy from the middle and upper classes for the poor families who had no choice but to take to the streets as a means of kind of getting money and helping their family to get by. What makes this satire so great and unique is how insane the proposed idea of eating the infants of the begging families is, yet how serious the proposer is and his almost oblivious to the absurdity of his proposal. He kind of goes about it in a nonchalant way, representing these ideas, and almost in an academic sense as well. That almost justifies what he's presenting. The proposer also provides so much detail for the plan, for example, calculating the math of how many children would be subject to this industry, the right age for consumption, the ratio of children that would be born to breed versus being born to consume, the amount of nourishment one child would provide a family upon consumption, when the flesh of a child would be most in season, and how to make other uses of the carcasses, for example, gloves and boots. The amount of detail Swift gives in this proposal and the various positive effects he claims the proposal will have on the economy and the people in the community makes it feel realistic and almost like a real option for the community. And this causes the reader to almost begin to forget how extreme this idea at first seemed, as the solutions to these economic problems start sounding kind of plausible in your head and helpful to the population. The purpose of the satire is to acknowledge the high proportion of poverty-stricken families and the lack of sympathy that exists in Dublin during this time. The author employs the tactic of rationalizing something so insane that it results in the audience suddenly coming to acknowledge an issue and care about it, even though it has been present in the community for years. This cruel proposal is able to stimulate a sympathy in the reader and the audience for the lower class who would be forced to participate in the child consumption industry that's being proposed. Another interesting aspect of this piece of literature is that it has had the same effect throughout time and can be applied to different countries rather than just England and Ireland. Almost 300 years after this piece was published, as a reader of this proposal, the idea seems just as absurd as when it first came out, and it still applies to problems we see today. There is still a population of beggars on the streets and high levels of families in poverty, and often the middle and upper classes barely turn their heads. The impact this piece of literature is able to have on its readers is what makes it unique from all the other poems and literary works we looked at this semester. The impact this writing has had on my thoughts and manipulating my mind is what makes it my favorite from the class and maybe over some of the works that I've even read outside of this class. And that is kind of why I enjoy this piece of literature so much, and I thank you for watching this presentation.